Hi, Cine Emperor here. Today, I will tell you about a horror or action movie called The Mummy. Spoilers ahead. Be careful. The movie begins in the year 1127 AD. A group of English knights take a big red ruby from ancient Egypt. They hide it in the tomb of one of their own knights. They hope no one will ever find it. The story moves to present-day London. A construction team discovers several knights' tombs in the same place. A scientist named Henry Jekyll studies the site. He believes the tomb is linked to Amenet, an ancient Egyptian princess. Her own people erased her from history because of her actions. In ancient Egypt, Princess Amenet was the pharaoh's only daughter. She trained as a warrior and was meant to be the next ruler after her father. But her plans failed when her father married again and had a son. The boy became the new heir instead of her. The princess did not give up her right to the throne. She made a deal with Set, the Egyptian god of death. He promised her great power if she helped him get a human body so they could rule as king and queen together. Set gave her a special dagger to bring his spirit into a human body. When Amenet held the dagger, she gained great powers. Her body was covered in tattoos, her eyes turned red, and she had 2 pupils in each eye. She went into her father's room and killed him, his wife, and their baby son without mercy. Amenet tried to sacrifice her lover to give Set a human body, but before she could do it, some priest stopped her and killed her lover. For killing her family, Amenet was punished. She was wrapped like a mummy while still alive and locked inside a coffin. She was buried in Mesopotamia in a tomb filled with mercury to stop her evil spirit from escaping. The story moves to present-day Iraq, where a war is happening. 2 American soldiers drive into a dangerous village. They ignore their orders and go inside. Nick wants to find ancient treasures to sell for money, but Chris does not like the idea. He thinks it is too risky and dangerous. The village is full of enemies, and they could get into big trouble. Chris worries about their safety, but Nick is more focused on finding valuable artifacts. Soon, enemies attack them from all sides, and gunfire fills the air. They try to fight back, but they are running out of bullets. The enemies are too many. With no other choice, Nick decides to call for an airstrike to destroy the enemies and save themselves. Soon, military planes arrive and fire missiles, destroying the village. Big explosions shake the ground, causing it to break apart. A huge hole opens, and Nick and Chris fall inside. To their surprise, they find a giant sarcophagus buried underground. It is actually the ancient tomb of Amenet. So Nick and Chris tell their boss, Colonel Greenway, about it. Soon, Greenway arrives with soldiers to check the discovery. With him is British archaeologist Jenny Halsey. As soon as she sees Nick, she slaps him. A few days ago, they had a one-night stand in Baghdad. But while she was sleeping, Nick stole her map and left without telling her. That same map led him to this place, and Jenny is very angry at him. Nick, Chris, and Jenny take their flashlights and go into the dark hole to explore. Inside, they find a strange tomb guarded by Sphinx statues. But something is unusual. The Sphinx are facing inward instead of outward. They also see heavy chains wrapped around the sarcophagus, keeping it locked in place. Jenny looks at the tomb and realizes it is worth millions. As they explore, they see mercury flowing everywhere. Jenny explains that in ancient Egyptian beliefs, mercury was used to weaken demons and stop their power. Chris feels afraid in the spooky place and wants to leave, but the others refuse. This makes him angry, so he takes his gun and shoots the chain holding the sarcophagus. As a result, the sarcophagus starts to rise. Suddenly, a large group of camel spiders appears from nowhere, and one bites Chris. At the same time, Nick sees a vision of Princess Amenet. She thanks him for freeing her and calls him my chosen one. Jenny quickly wakes Nick from his vision and asks for his help in removing the sarcophagus from the tomb. They load the sarcophagus onto a plane and fly to London. Chris, who was bitten by the spider, starts acting strangely. He tries to open the sarcophagus for no reason. When Greenway stops him, Chris suddenly stabs him. The soldiers panic and prepare to fight. Nick grabs a gun from one of them and warns them not to hurt Chris. But Chris, now fully possessed, attacks Nick. With no other choice, Nick is forced to shoot and kill his own friend. Suddenly, a huge flock of crows attacks the plane, breaking through the glass. They kill the pilot and co-pilot, causing the plane to lose control and fall fast. It seems like no one will survive. With little time left, Nick finds the only parachute and gives it to Jenny. He throws her out of the plane to save her life. The plane crashes in the English countryside, killing everyone on board. The next day, the soldiers' dead bodies are placed in a morgue. Nick, who was thought to be dead, suddenly wakes up and tears open the plastic bag covering him. He looks at himself in shock. There are no scars or injuries on his body. Then, Chris's ghost appears and tells Nick that he is cursed by Aminette. She wants to use his body as a vessel for Set. Before Chris can say more, Jenny and some doctors enter the room. They cannot see Chris's ghost, but they are completely shocked to find Nick alive and unharmed. At the crash site, 2 officers are inspecting the wreckage. One of them sees that the sarcophagus was damaged during the crash. He notices Aminette's mummy inside and calls his partner to take a look. Suddenly, Aminette wakes up and stabs him in the eye with her hand. She then kills him and drains his energy by sucking it from his mouth. A few moments later, the second officer arrives and is terrified to see his partner's dead body. But Aminette catches him, kills him, and absorbs his energy too. After regaining some strength, she commands the 2 dead officers to rise as zombies. They obey her and become her slaves. Nick and Jenny sit in a pub, trying to understand how he came back to life. Jenny thanks him for saving her and tells him that she studied the hieroglyphs on the sarcophagus. She then explains the story of Princess Aminette and the god of death, Set. Jenny also tells Nick about an ancient artifact called the Dagger of Set. The dagger has a special ruby on its handle, and both the knife and the stone together can give Set a physical form. She believes this powerful artifact is hidden somewhere in Europe because it was stolen long ago by English crusaders. Nick and Jenny arrive at the crash site, but Nick leads her into an old, abandoned building. Inside, they discover the resting place of the English crusaders' tombs. As they explore, Nick suddenly blacks out. When he opens his eyes, he finds himself inside a church, surrounded by zombies. They grab him and hold him in place. At that moment, Aminette appears and calls him her chosen one. She then smashes a statue, revealing a hidden dagger. Aminette prepares to complete the ritual that will turn Nick into Set. However, she suddenly stops when she realizes that the ruby is missing from the dagger's hilt. Jenny arrives at the scene, distracting Aminette and her zombies. The angry princess charges at Jenny, giving Nick a chance to break free. He grabs the dagger and fights off the zombies, managing to defeat them. Nick and Jenny quickly run out, jump into their van, and drive away. Several zombies block their path, making the van lose control and crash. As they struggle to recover, Aminette slowly walks toward the wreck. But suddenly, a group of armed men arrives and shoots her with mercury-tipped bullets. They manage to capture her and also rescue Nick and Jenny from the wreckage. Nick and Jenny arrive at a hidden facility beneath the Natural History Museum in London. As Nick walks through the halls, he sees strange artifacts, like a skull with fangs and a scaly forearm. Soon he meets Henry Jekyll, Jenny's boss. Jekyll introduces himself as the leader of Prodigium, a secret group that studies and controls dark forces. Aminette is tightly restrained, with mercury flowing through her veins to keep her weak. Henry tells Nick that his facility is the only place that can remove his curse. However, Aminette warns him that his fate is already decided and that the curse cannot be broken. At the same time, a Prodigium archaeological team is digging in the Crusader's tomb. They are surprised to find the missing ruby. Aminette, using her powers, senses this discovery. To escape, she summons a spider and commands it to crawl into a Prodigium worker's ear. Under her control, the worker destroys the machine that was pumping mercury into Aminette's veins. Later, Henry and his team receive news about the ruby's discovery. Meanwhile, Henry tries to inject himself with a serum, but Nick stops him and demands answers. Henry explains that since Nick is Aminette's chosen vessel for Set, he must be killed to prevent the Dark God's return. This shocks and angers Nick, but Henry insists that sacrificing him is necessary for the good of humanity. Refusing to accept his fate, Nick steals Henry's serum and tries to escape. However, this turns out to be a grave mistake. Henry has a dangerous split personality, and he regularly takes the serum to stop himself from transforming. Henry loses control and transforms into his violent alter ego. A guard quickly takes Jenny away to safety. However, Nick is trapped inside with the monstrous Hyde, who starts attacking him with great force. Jenny tries desperately to break through the bulletproof glass to help him, but she can't. Things seem hopeless for Nick as he struggles to fight back. but at the last moment, he grabs the syringe and injects it into the raging scientist, stopping the transformation. After things settle down, Nick and Jenny leave the facility to find the ruby and destroy it. Meanwhile, Aminette breaks free from her chains and kills several soldiers. She drains the life energy from many Prodigium members before recovering the Dagger of Set. After that, she uses her dark powers to shatter all the glass in the Prodigium headquarters. Aminette reaches the Crusaders' tomb and brings the knights' corpses back to life. Under her orders, the zombies quickly kill all the Prodigium soldiers in the tomb. Aminette recovers the missing ruby and attaches it back to the dagger's pommel. Meanwhile, Nick and Jenny meet Chris's ghost, who leads them toward the ruby. However, as they move forward, the zombies break a wall, making Nick and Jenny fall into the sewer water. Despite being outnumbered, they fight bravely. Nick smashes and rips off the zombies' heads to escape. Once free, they try to reach the surface and leave, but suddenly, Aminette appears and pulls Jenny underwater. Nick tries to save her, but by the time he reaches her, Jenny has already lost her life. Nick, heartbroken and angry, attacks Aminette with all his strength, but he is no match for her and soon gets injured. The princess tells him that some fates are worse than death and that Jenny is in a better place. She grabs him by the neck and urges him to surrender, promising that he will thank her later. Nick appears convinced and lets Aminette kiss him. However, it is all a trick at the perfect moment. He quickly grabs the dagger from her, turning the situation in his favor. Nick decides to destroy the ruby to end Aminette's power forever, but she tries to stop him, saying that if he lets himself be possessed, he will become a god with control over life and death. She tempts him with the promise of ultimate power. Nick looks at Jenny and realizes he wants nothing more than to bring her back to life. However, he knows the ritual will put him under Aminette's control. After thinking for a moment, he stabs himself in the heart instead. This causes him to transform, and his eyes split into two sets of pupils. Aminette is delighted, thinking he has joined her. As Nick moves closer, she expects a kiss, but instead, he suddenly attacks her with his new powers. He easily overpowers her, pins her down, and begins draining her life energy. In the end, Aminette collapses and turns back into a shriveled mummy. Nick then uses his powers to bring Jenny back to life, but when she wakes up, he is nowhere to be seen, leaving her confused. After searching for a while, she finally spots him hiding in the shadows. He refuses to show his face even when she calls out to him. This makes her realize that he sacrificed himself to save her. With tears in her eyes, Jenny begs him to stay, but Nick says goodbye and leaves, knowing he is no longer human. A few days later, Henry and Jenny watch as Aminette's mummified body is sealed inside a sarcophagus. To make sure she never escapes again, the sarcophagus is filled with mercury. Meanwhile, in the desert, Nick is seen with Chris, whom he has brought back to life. The two best friends prepare for their next journey. As the sun sets, they ride off on their horses, ready to explore the unknown. The movie ends with them disappearing into the vast desert, heading toward a new adventure.